we go. Here we go. We're back into it. Nothing like a few technical issues to get us started here, boys. How are we this morning?
Very good, thank you.
Awesome.
Very well.
Andy, what about yourself, mate? Hey, so hey, good to be back. I know we this has been something we've been meaning to do for quite some time, and really excited to finally be able to make something happen. And I guess this thing that we've been wanting to try for those that are maybe listening or watching or taking it in on the multiple channels that we'll be sending this live to the world on. I guess there's been the rapid expansion, I guess, of podcasts, right? Where people talk about stuff relating to whatever topic they kind of want to talk about. We thought we'd take it a step further, didn't we, guys? And not only did we want them to hear our beautiful voices, but see our phenomenal faces to create some of that that additional activity there. Des wasn't necessarily the keenest on the visual aspect of it, but we dragged him kicking and screaming. So, hey, so lots to talk about. Today is probably a bit of our intro to, I don't know what we're calling this. I tend to refer to it as the Circus of Safety. The black hole of our lives. There's a number of terms we probably use for this, so we just wanted to introduce ourselves and get this show on the road, really, and make that commitment that we're going to be doing this. So a couple of things, guys. I want to introduce a concept to our little show that we're gonna develop. Hopefully you're okay with it, and it's about how do we decide what we want to talk about? Because the last thing we want to do, right, is just go on about a rambling mess of nothingness, right? I mean, surely whatever we want to talk about on these get-togethers, we want it to be insightful, we want it to be meaningful, we want it to be engaging, and we want people to walk away with it, right? So, are you okay if I sort of introduce a concept that we could test out how we come up with topics?
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Yeah, sure. Well, I want to introduce to you what I know this is going to be a little bit awkward and maybe not very PC, but considering that the majority of what we're going to be talking about is about safety-related aspects of things. But I want to introduce to you what I have affectionately come to know as the in my own little world as the spinning wheel of death. And there it is, team, the spinning wheel of death. Now, what I was thinking about with the spinning wheel of death is, as you can see, I've got a list of sort of topics that I've already started building onto the spinning wheel, and I thought maybe we could have a quick chat this morning about they've done it again. These technical issues are just are not good, guys. So I've got to apologise. Fat fingers.
Don't be looking at the immediate cause. Dig deeper. Look for the root cause.
There we go. So maybe that's another topic. Are you suggesting, Andy, we introduce our root cause analysis to the spinning wheel of death?
Yeah.
Well, there we go. So
it's not fair to blame the operator.
Not fair to blame the operator. Okay. Well, there we go. I've got it back up and running. So I'll just share it again, and we'll add root cause analysis to the spinning wheel of death. Right. That probably adds that takes us to a whole nother. I think some of the concepts that you came up with, and I think I'm going to add safety 2. I think, or do we go?
No, don't do. No, that's it. Yeah.
Oh, that's it. Okay, so there we go.
It's not like that. It's safety I. That's it.
Yeah, there we go. Safety I. That's pretty cool. Now, hey, here's a quick random question. Not that I'm trying to preempt.
Safety I.
Not that I'm trying to preempt these conversations, but is safety 2 and the new view of safety, are they the same thing, do you think? Like, are they one topic or 2 topics?
I would treat them as one.
You would treat them as one. Well, there we go. Well, let's do that. And then listen, if anyone has issue with that, listen, love to on the show. Any other you think we can add to the spinning wheel, Heath?
Yeah, so my topic that I was hoping actually we could cover today was moving beyond compliance.
Oh, okay. No, love it. Moving beyond compliance. Well, let's put it on the wheel. And why not? Let's have a bit of a chat about it at the end of today, right? I think that could be a good way to start the show and the ramblings. Any other topics? I mean, the great thing is we can keep adding topics as we go and as they come in. And listen, if people reach out to us, we can add topics. Anything else front and center that you'd like to add to the spinning wheel of death?
Nothing from me at the moment.
Nothing for you? Yeah, Andy, you mentioned you had a client text you asking if you had 5 minutes for a question before we went live. Is that question shareable yet? Do we know? Can we put that on the spinning wheel of death, or is that another topic we'll talk about today?
I haven't called him back.
Well,
do you want me to call?
Well, mate, listen, I just got to apologise to everyone that's streaming in. It's incredibly difficult to find. Not only is it incredibly difficult these days just to find help, but to find good help clearly is a bit more challenging.
I'll send my number to you, Brent, and he can call you.
Okay, great. Now, the way the spinning wheel of death works, team, is going forward. We dial in, and the first thing we'll do is we'll hit the wheel, and it spins around and around and around. And then lands on a topic, and then we get to see which topic we want to talk about. So that's the whole concept of the spinning wheel of death. So hopefully we like it. Hopefully the people out there in the land that might be tuning in like it, and becomes a bit of a feature of our little show.
I really like it. I'm a fan.
You're a fan.
Awesome. Think we could get some merch made up?
Now we're thinking next level here. I can see Des now with a big shirt on, nice and bright, walking around with a spinning wheel of death on it. It'd be awesome.
Just trying to figure out why it needs to be the spinning wheel of death. It's pretty full on. There's big consequences for this one.
Well, listen, I guess, I mean, I don't know. I just found it ironic. I mean, we could rename it. I'm not.
No, I think it came from that whole concept of the circus, the safety circus. You know, that where they chain the person to the wheel and they throw knives at them.
Yes, because
that was the
could be the spinning wheel of serious harm or something like that.
Well, there we go. We could. I think we might need to take that offline, and we can have a rambling about that, because one of the things that I've sort of suggested is that we're going to keep these segments. We're going to make them regular. So and that's why we're putting ourselves out there today, because we had to start, because we've been saying we're going to do this for the last close to 12 months now, I think, from memory. So we had to make a start. The next theory was that we'll look to keep these segments short and sharp, so sort of 35 odd minutes, sort of max, I think, if we put our time frame on it. And listen, if we get really popular, maybe we can even have some special guests join us live in the studio, which is pretty cool. And that's the greatness about this whole interweb thingy-majig. We can have people coming in from all over the world into the studio, which is pretty cool. So anything else anyone wants to add before maybe we dive into Des's topic of the day?
I just thought maybe instead of the wheel of death, spinning wheel of death, how about the spinning wheel of underreporting?
Well, or is that another whole topic on the wheel?
Yeah.
There we go. I'm going to add that to the wheel. But anything else that you want to add before we get Des to introduce this topic and what it's all about?
Nope, let's get into it. Spin that wheel.
Okay, Des, take it away, mate. What's going on? Why is this front and center for you? What is the topic? And let's get into chatting about it.
So the topic is this idea that safety must move beyond compliance, or words to that effect, that we must do more than just comply with legislation. I hear it a lot in forums and safety events and things like that, a statement about moving beyond compliance. But I just wonder if we all had an honest conversation with ourselves, could we all say with absolute certainty that we're 100% compliant with health and safety legislation standards in our organisations today, and I mean that to a very high standard. Would all of our workers hold up under cross-examination? Would all of our evidence check out and be rock solid? And if I think if it's an honest conversation, the answer is probably going to be no. And if the answer is no, well, then where does this concept of moving beyond compliance come from when arguably no one's complying?
Wow. Some pretty, when you first think about that statement, beyond compliance, it sounds great, right? But then when you start pointing out some of those obvious facts, like, are you actually complying? And I don't know, I was just thinking there, Des, as you was talking through that, and you're talking about the fact that if we, how do we go beyond compliance if we can't even actually put our hand at our heart and say we are complying? It's a little bit like trying to run before you can walk, right? I mean, we've all seen what happens to kids, right, when they try to walk before they can crawl, or run before they can walk. Generally, they fall flat on their face, right? So I don't know about anyone else, but I must have something weird going on, maybe too many coffees already this morning. But that was kind of running through my mind as you're talking through that, and kind of tends to make sense for me. What about you, Andy? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I guess for me, it's all about defining the term. So go beyond compliance. Well, if compliance is to eliminate all risks to health and safety, so far as is reasonably practical, you're setting the bar pretty high. Like, if you have any accidents, you're probably not doing that. Like, what?
Okay. Yeah. No.
I mean, if you're eliminating all risks to health and safety, but you've been reasonably practical about it, what does beyond that actually mean? Because you're stopping events that haven't happened. I mean, it starts to go a bit Minority Report for me.
Yep. Well, some great references coming out here. Babies falling on their face, running before you can walk, and Minority Report. Well, that's an interesting. I mean, what you've kind of taken this off on a slightly different tangent, Andy. Des, I thought, was talking initially about compliance with legislation and standards and guidelines, and you kind of took it sort of slightly another tangent, which is about, like effectively meeting one of our principal obligations under the Act, right, to reduce the risk as far as is reasonably practical. So what were you thinking, Des? Were you, how broad were you thinking around compliance? I mean, what does compliance mean to you?
Well, do you know what you need to comply with respect to your organization? Are you complying with it, and how do you prove that you're complying with it? That's probably three elements of what I would consider to be rock solid compliance. But I think when people, the statements that we must move beyond compliance rarely gets any objections. When someone says that everyone generally agrees, yes, we should move beyond compliance. But I don't think anyone really knows what that means, because I think it opens the doors to a lot of nonsense, a lot of safety fads and ideas of, move beyond compliance by doing this new fad idea, whatever that idea might be. And I think it's all a distraction, because really, if we're having that honest conversation, we're not complying, and instead of being distracted by a fad, we need to just go back to the Act and say, what is it we're actually supposed to be doing, and just concentrate on that, because that will get you, like Andy said, most of the way there. It's actually a pretty high bar, and not many people are meeting it.
Yeah, no, good summary there. And I think touching a little bit on where Andy kind of went, and I think what you're saying as well is that first part of it, right? Like, as an organization or as an individual, what do you actually consider compliance to start with, right? And how many, I got to be honest, hand on heart, I don't know if I've actually defined anywhere in any of my career to date what it is that I'm trying to comply with, right? So we might have a health and safety plan or a strategy, whatever kind of buzzword we want to use of the day, and it might be all pretty and that, but that's not setting that target for compliance, is it? Or setting that standard that this is what we want to achieve in terms of compliance. Yeah, interesting. And I mean, what are your thoughts? Do you think, though, in terms of if we're talking about compliance, so let's just, if we could maybe go down that sort of tangent a little bit more. I'm thinking compliance, and And I don't know, what if somebody turns around and says, well, you know what, I've got ISO 1401 or whatever, 14,000 or whatever, you know, like I've got an ISO standard. I've got ASNZS, this standard or that standard. I mean, are we comfortable that maybe people consider that compliance? And I mean, if you look at the number of companies out there promoting the fact that they've got these ISO standards or these whatever standards, maybe that's where they're getting it from, that they're going beyond compliance because they've met this benchmark of some description. Any thoughts on that, guys?
Yeah, so I mean, complying with a standard is, you know, there's merit in that, no doubt. To me, that, I don't know, from one point of view, that's just another form of compliance. You haven't really moved beyond anything, you're just complying. But I would say if you're arguing that is moving beyond compliance, and that same organization does something like has a blanket rule that everyone must wear safety glasses at all times, or everyone must wear gloves at all times, then a blanket rule such as that is contrary to the Act. All use of PPE and work processes need to be risk assessed, and if you're implementing a blanket rule, by definition, you're not risk assessing those things. And you might turn around and argue, well, we have risk assessed that, and I would say, well, that's one heck of a crystal ball you've got. You've forecast every future situation where you need to wear a pair of gloves, and you've forecasted every correct pair of gloves that you would need to wear, and it just becomes absurd. And so if you've got a blanket rule, I would argue you're not complying with the Act and the true intent of the Act, and therefore any sort of standard that you might have been certified to is nice, but you haven't moved beyond compliance because you haven't yet complied.
Well, that you've taken this. I think this is where these conversations are going to be really cool, because you've kind of grabbed onto something that I've said and kind of taken on a slightly different tangent again, and raised some incredibly valid points. This is not going to go well for anyone, really, boys, but I've been trying to multitask while these conversations have been going on, and old fat fingers Brenton over here. I've been trying to add to the spinning wheel of death, because I mean, you've raised a number of great points I'd love to dive off onto today, but then we'd maybe have nothing to talk about in a fortnight. But the other, so I guess there's where I was actually, I mean, and you've raised a valid point. Do people feel that, oh, well, you know, we're doing everything we need to do, we're going to go beyond compliance, so we're going to go get this externally assessed standard, and there's a plethora of them out there today. You know, the number of ISO standards out there available for a range of things: safety, environment, quality, risk, and all that kind of stuff. And then there's the ASNZS standard, and then there's the Safe Plus model that you're not getting. You know, you go out and you can get assessed against. So people may feel that that's going beyond compliance. I don't know. It'd be interesting to get people's thoughts. Maybe they can leave comments in the post that's going to be generated now, or is generated, or whatever. We'll see how the technology works. But my other wonder, Des, was, do you feel that maybe, I wonder if people think that because they've got that standard, they've actually hit compliance. So that's what they're trying to comply with, as opposed to the legislation per se. So they've decided they're going to go down the road of Safe Plus or ISO or ASNZS or whatever. They hit that standard, and my wonder is that in their mind going, well, now we're complying, so anything I do above this or beyond this standard that I've achieved to get compliance is now beyond that compliance, is my wonder.
They could frame it that way, but I would still argue that my first question to them is, if I walked up to any worker in your organization and quizzed them on any aspect of your health and safety management system or your certification or your standard that's relevant to them, would they be able to answer, you know, truthfully and wholly, with a great understanding of every aspect that's relevant to them? Then yeah, you're moving beyond compliance. But I seriously doubt that every organization can honestly say that.
Oh, don't disagree at the moment. But I guess what I'm trying to work through is it because of a lack of understanding around what compliance actually is? So, is it is that the issue? Is that why people are now to try to create this new thing, this beyond compliance? Because in their mind, they've actually hit compliance. Because maybe it is because they don't actually understand what compliance is.
Absolutely. Can I jump in here?
Oh, you go for it. Go for it.
I talk about this, and correct me, I may be wrong here about Des's greater knowledge in this field, but when I'm working with the diploma students, we often talk about the difference between the terms compliance and conformance. And I think they're used interchangeably, like many things are, but actually they mean different things. So I've just been looking through my notes here. So we talk about compliance as the forced adherence to a law, regulation, rule, process, or practice. It's something that you have to do. Where conformance, on the other hand, applies to strategies, plans that are more loosely defined or self-imposed. So if you go quite clearly with that idea of compliance, then the only person that can really decide whether you're compliant or not is the person that's in charge of the law. You can't say you're compliant with the health and safety legislation. Only a judge can say that, surely.
Well, mate, you're sending me down a rabbit hole here, Andy.
Is that right or not? I mean, that's always been my understanding of it. So when you say beyond compliance, it doesn't. If compliance is the adherence with the law, how can you do more than adhere to the law? Like you adhere to two laws? I don't know. It gets a bit weird.
But so listen, I think people are going to work this out pretty quickly. In this little wee group that we've kind of created, and it's definitely by no means. Let's be clear on this team. It's no means exclusive, isn't it?
Oh, not at all.
I think we were the only three people that actually wanted to keep talking to each other. So there's one thing. We started with 10 and we're down to 3. So we're getting there. But people are going to very quickly work out who the academics in this group are, and who the clever people are, and who the idiot is. And I'm going to put my hand up right now. Just tell people. Every group needs a clown, right? And
hence the safety circus.
It is the circus of safety, right? Mate, listen. So what you're telling me is, if I'm taking this, and please, if I'm taking this way too literally, because that's the kind of guy that I am, please, by all means, say that. But so what you're saying is, I've got to go to court and I've got to be prosecuted, and the outcome of that potential prosecution will determine whether I even hit compliance or not. So don't bother going down and getting an ISO standard. Don't bother going down and go to court and ask a judge to assess me. Is that kind of what we're proposing here?
Well, that would be the end point. I mean, getting assessed against standards and things is useful in providing some assurance and information to the judge to make the decision, because I mean that's what the judge's job is, to make the decision. So all of that stuff would look in your favor as if you are achieving compliance. But fundamentally, yeah, I mean, we can use case law as well. That would give us an indication to a degree. But even that, I'm delving into Des's field here, so I'll hand over to Des before I land me in the shit. Oh.
Well, I think the short answer is yes. That the only way to be definitively sure that you've complied is to successfully survive a prosecution or a court case of some sort where the judge has made that decision. I think even your own solicitor would not definitively say that you're fully compliant. They might say, well, we've probably got an 80% chance of getting across the line with this case. But there's always going to be that contingency built into their opinion. So
well,
it's a subjective call, actually. In the absence of a judge, it's a pretty subjective call to make.
Wow, that's a pretty when we start, and I think that's what inspired us to start having these conversations, right? Because there's been a number of times where the three of us have got on a call or met at a cafe and we've rambled off about these things, and I guess that's the when you start looking at these different concepts, and that spinning wheel of death is going to help us capture these concepts and bring them to life and let us pull them apart. When you start doing that, while maybe the intention of the statement, let's go beyond compliance, is probably there, and so that's I guess that's maybe something else we could wrap up with as we finish up this conversation around this topic. I mean, is it so much about the statement itself, and we talk about this with the law too, don't we? We talk about the law says this, right? But what is the intent of the law? I guess is often the way we try to look at it. I'm just going to put it out there to you guys. I mean, is it so much about the statement beyond compliance, or is it more about the intent that the statement is trying to generate? Which possibly, I mean, I didn't create the statement, right? It's not a term that I generally use on a regular basis, but is the intent of that statement to try to get people to think broader, because people can become quite narrow focused, and people can become quite rigid. Is it maybe more about the intent of that term beyond compliance as opposed to the literal meaning beyond compliance?
I'd suggest it possibly could be, but that leads to a further question: is does the means justify the end? Because effectively, by spouting this and talking about this, you're providing disinformation, which at some point is harmful. It's not neutral, it's not neutral at all. This is spreading misinformation and misunderstanding of terms that are important in safety. And we've already got it on the wheel of death, but we could say the same about many aspects of safety where the means is deemed to be worthy of the end, but often when we get to the end, we realize we've created a complete mess. And it's the risk hazard debate is I would say is the epitome of that in safety, and understanding around those two terms. I think people have used them, and indeed the risk matrix, which I saw on there as well, is people have used these things with the best intentions, but actually there's been some unintended consequences due to them.
Yes. Yep. No. Good point. Des, what do you think? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I would support what Andy said.
Is it the term itself, or is it the intent?
It's the term itself. I think in almost every case, every honest case would be incorrect. The intent might be, might be a virtue, but it gives rise. The outcome of that is a distraction. I think it opens the floodgates to all of these other ideas that you need to be doing. All these different safety fads that come out, and it's the next best thing, and it's 1 week we're talking about this, the next week we're talking about that, and it just adds confusion. It adds distraction, when really what we should be focusing on is, are we doing work safely, and does the person doing that work understand how to do that job safely?
Yeah, no.
And really, when you boil it all down, they're probably the only two things that really matter.
So, and that's a good point, and actually, I'll just again trying to multitask here. The stuff coming out of this conversation and the wheel of death is growing immensely, and I think that's where you've nailed it, right, around that whole what is it that we're trying to achieve, and keeping it basic, and keeping it focused on those two important parts is so important. So no, great. I mean, you were the one that kind of threw this topic out on the table. Have you found this helpful? I mean, is there anything else you want to explore with this topic? What are your thoughts? Is this kind of helped kind of quell a burning rage or anything inside you? I don't know, man. I'm really just wanted to make sure that when we leave each other on a Friday morning, that you're feeling okay about this, and we haven't racked you up anymore.
Burning rage is very poetic for a Friday morning, and I think I think there's some degree of satisfaction with the discussion. I just wanted to throw it out there because it's just so rarely met with any resistance to that statement, moving beyond compliance, and I think there are some problems with it. And when you hear about some organization that's moving beyond compliance, and what are they up to? Well, often when you scratch the surface, they're facing a prosecution. They have a pretty poor history of health and safety, and you're just wondering, well, why are you distracting yourself with this stuff? Why don't you just work safely and make sure your workers understand that? And really, if you're preoccupied with making sure you're working safely, you shouldn't have time for all this other stuff. It's wholly consuming for any organization, surely.
Good point. And again, it's really it's quite intimidating hanging out with you guys. You're incredibly intelligent, and I'm incredibly simple. And some simple terms that come to mind as I'm hearing you talk, there's things like stick to your knitting, right? Let's keep it basic. And these are a number of arguments that well, not arguments, probably conversations that I've had with people around. Safety should be simple. It shouldn't be complicated. And I guess the worry is we start throwing out all these buzzwords or these new terms or these new fads, regardless of what their intention is, which is all, if we're honest with each other, the intention behind probably a lot of the stuff is really good, right? But is it just creating confusion? And I think to use one buzzword to solve another buzz term, is it just creating safety clutter? Are these terms and whatnot, while well intended, are they themselves creating safety clutter? And I don't know if that's something we can leave the audience out there to ponder. No doubt we're going to have hundreds of people, thousands of people dialing into this at some point. I won't share the analytics with anybody until I know that they've hit a benchmark. It could be quite demoralizing, right? But no, hey guys, listen. Again,
box is already lit up, mate. This is.
Oh wow, there we go. I mean, I've been trying to manage the spinning wheel of death. I haven't been able to watch the live feed, so thanks for the update there, Des. But no, boys, this has been great, and I'm really looking forward to this. I'm hoping people kind of message us. I'm hoping people kind of get out there, and I'm really glad we took that leap of faith, right? We stepped off that virtual cliff into the world of nothingness. We've exposed ourselves in probably more ways than one on more than one occasion, but we've exposed ourselves to everything that is good. Des, you don't remember that night? That was a big one, mate. But yeah, I'm stoked. I'm excited. Really keen to see where this takes us. And looking forward to hopefully having some guests join us. And listen, if there's anybody out there that's got a topic or a question, then by all means, we're more than happy to add it to the spinning wheel of death. Listen, if you want your question to go live and it's a burning must-have now, by all means, flick it through. Don't give it to Andy because he does nothing with it. Maybe send it to someone like Des or myself, and we'll actually ask the question and get it out there and something to talk about. And in some way, that's a good question, Des. I might need to just before we wrap this up really quickly, if people are submitting real questions about real safety things that they've got real concerns with, and we start providing incredibly valuable advice, right?
We're not doing that.
Let's be frank. Should we put a disclaimer or something here to say that our advice is not, like, I don't know, dodgy? Should be looked at with a grain of salt. I mean, what do we need to do there to cover ourselves legally? Actually,
not give advice.
Well, before I answer this question, Brenton, I need to point out that what I'm about to say does not constitute legal advice, and is meant for general purposes and not for specific circumstances. But yeah,
you've done this before, haven't you? Wow. Okay. So I guess we're just going to be a bit mindful about how we respond to those questions. And again, as Des so poetically pointed out, which I can't repeat for the life of me, maybe I'll get it scrolling across the bottom of our screen. I can do stuff like that. It's pretty cool. So we can maybe introduce what's referred to as a ticker, and we can keep that reminding people that this is for general consumption. And not to be used in a legal context. Now, so apart from that, anybody got anything exciting for the weekend?
Yeah, Yeah.
So
I've got a. This is where I keep talking. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, I've got. I'm highly motivated at the moment. Some piece of work's come across, been presented to me that I just cannot let go. So I'll be getting into that at the weekend.
Now that's a good point. And actually, and this is a good opportunity for us to share. I believe, Andy, you chucked it into my inbox. Thanks for that. WorkSafe New Zealand, big shout out to you people. Looking for some feedback, I believe, on 2 pieces of guidance documents that they're producing. Listen, don't sit there in the background whinging and moaning and complaining about, organizations not doing their job or whatever. If you want to get involved, there's loads of opportunities, and WorkSafe are providing that opportunity now. I believe there's some consultation out for 2 documents, one called Managing Risks at Events, and another one called Providing a Health Service for an Event. So jump onto their website, reach out to us. We can share the links, have your say, and actively contribute to whatever we call this thing out there that we do for a living. So, but no, great work, boys. Have a great weekend, and we'll let everyone know when we're going to be back and have a bit more of a hoo-ha as we lead into it.
Fantastic. Thanks, Brenton, for sorting this out. It's been great.